Close to Scotland's southern border, in the round peaty hills sculpted by the glaciers thousands of years ago, nestles the Garden of Cosmic Speculation, a garden dedicated to science, cosmology, chaos, and the universe. The story of this garden began in 1988, when architect Charles Jencks and his wife Maggie Keswick fell in love with the Portrack estate, an 18th century manse surrounded by woods and meadows. The couple radically transformed this piece of countryside into an amazing private garden of some 12 hectares. Their love story lasted 17 years, until Maggie passed on in 1995. Maggie continues, however, to inspire Charles Jencks, particularly when he's devising the Garden of Cosmic Speculation. This garden is their life's work. With the support of mathematicians and astrophysicists, Charles Jencks sculpts nature to celebrate the cosmos, a UFO in the art of gardens that we discover today in the company of our green team. Charles Jencks himself and his daughter Lily, head gardener Aleister Clark, garden historian Marion Mako, and astronaut Dr. Jeffrey Hoffman. Charles Jencks is an architect. He theorized postmodernism, the major architectural trend of the late 20th century. He points to the humor and the irony of this movement, but also its willingness to break with convention. Much of his work is inspired by cosmology.
The cosmos is the ultimate referent of everything I do. And since 1980, I've been saying this again and again and again, writing 40 books and, trying to persuade my architectural friends to go there. I think it's becoming slowly more focused in the arts.
Our tour of the garden begins on the Esplanade. Here, Charles Jencks created the Black Hole Terrace, a psychedelic structure that sucks in all who approach.
Supergravity on the event horizon, it stretches space, and real gravity is pulling me down into the hole, down to this point, which is the singularity right here. And it comes out in another universe around here, where the laws of this universe are related to the laws of that universe here. We used to eat outside in Scotland in the summer months, and when we ate here, our table at the end of the meal would sink in that far because it was so wet. It was swampy. So that's why we had to make this terrace. So it's a terrace we eat on. And then out of the terrace comes another terrace. And that idea was that black holes and universes lead to other universes, to a multiverse. And this one is coming out of that universe and, like galaxies, has a spiral. And in the center of every galaxy we now know is a black hole.
I spent 56 years at Portrack Gardens. I started in 1959, 1960. Long time ago.
You might even say that Aleister Clark was born in Portrack, secateurs in hand. First employed by Maggie's parents, this old school gardener has seen several generations go by. He loves to look after the Garden of Paradise, the oldest and most floral part of the garden.
Maggie loved flowers, she was enthusiastic about flowers. And I think, dare I say it, she loved colours, bright colours. And believe it or not, one of her favourite flowers is what we call a weed here. It's cow parsley, and it grows on roadsides. It's that white mop-headed flower, and she absolutely loved that. She wouldn't let us cut it. And I've seen many changes in the garden. For example, prior to 1990, there was no water in the garden. We were totally greenhouse, flowers, fruit and vegetables. It's all been done since 1990, so we've sort of changed from a conventional garden to a cosmic speculation garden. It's been good because, I've been all over Britain and all over the world doing work for Charles Jencks. and I have enjoyed it, at times exasperating, but in the main, enjoyable.
In this room, I developed landforms as an art, the art of landforming. So everything that's in the landscape is in this room. I was really interested in a landscape of waves. And in order to have a new landscape design, you have to experiment with the languages of nature.
Charles Jencks' trademark is landform, the art of shaping the landscape into mountains and hills. An ancestral technique whose design is here renewed by Charles.
Well, a curve, obviously, in the landscape is natural, and a square in architecture is natural. If you look at these shapes in the French curve, this is similar but not the same to that, and this is similar but not the same to that. Instead of repeating everything like Le Nôtre does at Versailles, all of my work is fractal. That means it's self-similar but not self-same, all right? And this idea in science was emerging in 1988, 89, just as I was working out these landscapes. So when we were designing this, Maggie and I worked together very well on this, and she took out the spoil here, the sand and the gravel, and she wanted to make it flat, but I said, no, we should make a mound out of it. And I designed this causeway, which slightly curves, just a slight curve within the fractal form there. But the big idea is also Chinese, which is that the yin is a flat, reflective, serene female principle, and the yang is a vertical, strong, sculptural shape.
Prior to 1993, this was a flat field, and we bought bulldozers in, pushed all the topsoil back, and we built the outline of the snake form and the snail form. We do have a watering system in with a diluter to feed it, but we've never ever fed it, because the more you feed it, the more you've got to cut it. We find actually that it's better cutting it every week, because we don't have to clean it up. Because if we leave it to maybe a fortnight, we've got to blow all the clippings off it. So we're better cutting it every week, and it makes it look as if it's tidy all the time.
I think the landform has a great history in England. I mean, it takes references from other places in the world, such as the Chinese garden, such as in the Nazca lines in the desert in Peru. But it's much more common, I think, in England than in many European gardens. The landform moves on into the 17th and 18th century. One of the great exponents was Charles Bridgman, and he often created beautiful amphitheatres, and these stepped seating areas, such as the one at Claremont, created a focal point at the end of a view in a garden. And then, of course, you come on to the well-known Lancelot Capability Brown, and he sculpted the garden, but in a much more subtle way, so with gentle undulations and little gaps through which to view clumps of trees, but also he would sculpt very finely down to the edge of water, in the same way that the ponds in the garden of Cosmic Speculation have very sharp edges of grass and water.
From the other side of the Comet Bridge, all the beauty of the British countryside is revealed. A little path leads off into the tall grass, and the play of perspectives follows the rules of pictorial composition. For Charles and his daughter Lily, each bush hides a memory.
You probably don't remember, but there used to be a fence.
I remember the fence,
Do you remember the fence?
and the cows in it used to come and watch
Yeah.
us. I love this field because it's so incredibly undulating perfectly.
Originally, the glacier was a mile high here,
Yeah,
and it brought in all this junk, and then it dropped it here when it melted.
right.
So these moraines, they call them drums or drumlins, and that was the idea that Maggie and I had to miniaturize the far distant rolling hills.
And it does capture, yeah, the distant landscape, bring it into the garden, so the long view and the short view.
Yes.
Lily Jenks grew up in this garden and knows all its nooks and crannies. It also gave her a vocation. Following in her parents' footsteps, Lily has become an architect landscaper. Here, in place of the former entrance to the castle, she designed the Garden of Time.
Well, it's a really calm area that I used to walk in a lot as a child, and it's an alley, so it sets up this rhythm as you walk. So in this garden, I wanted to show cyclical time, like the seasons and phases of the moon. So this part of the garden is standing now is the head of the arrow of time, things that don't return back. This arrow head is almost like a cloister where you have columns that give you a rhythm as you step and walk through as a kind of meditative walk. But the garden is kind of latent with potential for understanding our place in nature and being a place of contemplation and philosophizing and thinking about where we are. And that's really the kind of potential in the garden.
Moss grows anywhere in Scotland, but you just made a statement it likes wet, lush conditions. It's a big, big, big family. Thousands of different varieties of moss. Now this here, it's not supposed to be here, but there's no harm in it being here because it's shady and it's underneath the trees. But if we were planting anything in here, we'd have to remove the moss, but it looks quite nice as a carpet in here, so we don't mind it. We're making use of its nature.
The park houses a good many scientific references here and there. But whether the visitor grasps these evocations of fractals and electrons matters not. The pleasure of the stroll is unadulterated. The tour continues behind this secret door, where Charles Jencks has concentrated all the history of the universe.
So there's a natural relationship between evolution, which goes up by steps, bum, 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 and water that comes down, bum, bum, bum. So when we turn on this cascade, you hear the music of evolution. What happens in evolution is you rather take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, forward progress and regress. And that's why this cascade goes up one way and then comes back to a plateau and then goes up the other way and comes back, because there's always destruction in the universe, and the destruction of the dinosaurs there led to the emergence of the primates here, the small animals, which led up the way to the first civilizations at the top, which were then destroyed and led to Stonehenge and the Egyptians, which were destroyed and then led on to modernity, which is being destroyed, which leads on to postmodernism. One of the great enjoyments of this kind of design is that I work with scientists, and while we're designing, new things are discovered. It's very interesting, isn't it, that you can now, today, represent the universe in sculpture, you can represent it in art, a diagram, or here in a garden. We couldn't do that 50 years ago. And you walk into the garden of the 6 senses, and you see mixtures of different symbols. And in this particular cell, we have the sense of hearing. First of all, you have a parabolic shell above, and then you have an ear below. Here are 2 little tiny strawberries. They're so much better than big strawberries. The sense of taste with the lips leads to the sense of touch with the hand there. And you see thistles which are very hard to touch, which hurt. Maggie's in the center of all these men, and she's in the Getty Museum. I took a picture of her. Anyway, it shows her spirit, and shows she likes very colorful clothes. She designed clothes. I've had a portrait of Maggie after she died. I put her in the quietest place of the garden. It wasn't because it was the garden of death there. It was because it was a quiet place where you find all these plants that her father had planted. I was very interested in putting her there because it's death. Sure, it's death, but it's also the strength of nature coming back is very strong. Every gardener knows that gardens are never finished. Things die, and you sometimes hope that it will work the way you designed it, and then it's a catastrophe. You should accept catastrophe in your life and in your garden, because a garden, you make a move, and you force la nature, is it? And then nature makes a move, hits back, and then you make a move. So it's a dialogue with nature. In the universe, organization emerges along with chaos.
At the very bottom of the garden sits an outsized plant called gunira, nicknamed giant rhubarb. This species grows naturally a long way from Scotland in the upland bogs of Brazil.
I love this plant. This is gunira. I think probably because it has such an incredible scale and texture. This is almost like elephant skin. It's so strong. When water comes onto it, it beads and falls, collects in the center. And I've seen it grow. It was very small when I was young. And now I have a daughter and she can hide on it. We can even put her sitting inside one of these leaves and it almost holds her up because it's so massive and so strong.
Charles Jencks drew us even further into his garden, into a space that pays tribute to the progress of science and to Scottish scholars from the Age of Enlightenment.
We had an old train track that went here right over the river, and then they asked me if they could take it down and build a new bridge. And so I said, yes, as long as you build me a viewing platform here so I can see the trains come through the bridge. That's two breasts or a bum, anything you like, but it's a viewing platform. They gave me this garden behind the bum, the Garden of Modernism, and it represents a train with 17 carriages, and they are the Scottish Worthies. That is the people in Scotland who invented the Enlightenment in the 18th century, the modernists. So we made a little map of Scotland, and happily the train went absolutely north because the Scottish people always came from the south, from Spain, from Ireland, which is over there, and they always walked north during the Roman period and before then. So go north is the saying, the Scottish, go north, go north.
The cosmic landscapes of Charles Jencks have since overstepped the garden's borders. Some 50 miles north of Portrack, one of his greatest works is located in a former open-cast coal mine, the Croric Multiverse. In this large-scale landscape art, the Earth's undulations mix with the megaliths to tell the mysteries of the cosmos. And who might we meet here, fascinated by these panoramas, but the famous American astronaut Jeffrey Hoffman, who didn't hesitate to cross the Atlantic to come and see them.
You see, we found all these boulders on the site. They were underneath the ground, and they're made out of shale, and we found 2,000 of them. Everything you see around us is built from what's here on a coal site, so energy is all around us.
Jeffrey Hoffman made 5 trips in the space shuttle. He racked up more than 1,200 flight hours, traveling 34 million kilometers through space.
One of the great areas of research, I don't want to call it a mystery because we have some ideas of how it happened, is that out of this chaos, structure evolved. And then we actually go into more speculative ideas of the multi-universe and the possibility of having separate parallel universes, all of which is a very interesting topic these days in cosmology. It's something I've dreamed about coming here in the Garden of Cosmic Speculation for so many years, and it definitely does not disappoint. It's a wonderful creation.
At the heart of the site, the faithful Aleister completes a new installation, a mosaic of red stones, illustrating the importance of the terrestrial magnetic shield against the sun's rays.
So we're very lucky to have this shield in here. Without this shield, we'd be cooked every day, wouldn't we? We have to make it scientific, we have to make it based on reality, but we have to make it art.
That's what I find so inspiring about this garden and also the Garden of Cosmic Speculation, is that you've taken these scientific observations and turned them into art and given them a form we can actually experience walking around through these incredible structures. Both appreciate the beauty here on the ground, but also, I think, for the general public, learn something about the universe we live in. And so it's all a big cosmic dance. I have to say, I'm not a gardener. My wife does the gardening. She's very good. We say that she has the green thumb and I have a black thumb, so I'm not allowed to touch the plants. I don't think we're going to have a Garden of Cosmic Speculation in our backyard in Boston, but this has actually given me some real things to think about, so maybe we'll do something a little bit unusual next year.